All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pen to Paper. I'm Leah Lindman, author of the Canadian Reminiscence series and a historical fiction author. And today I'm really excited to have with us in-house Mckenna Shaffer with her new book, Otis the Farm Dog, and it's a children's book. So I'm really excited. This is the first time we have a children's author here on the platform. So please give a huge warm welcome. Just a few little housekeeping notes. Anybody can ask questions in the chat below anytime, and I'll look at them as they come up. And I'm going to say this a few times throughout the interview. There is a giveaway. So for the length of this interview, this live stream, and 24 hours after, if you put in the name Otis, which is Otis the Farm Dog, then you get to put your name into the hat, or I should say the randomizer online, and we'll pick a name, and then you could win a copy for your kids or grandkids, and it would be an amazing Christmas gift. So that's the housekeeping. Mckenna, thanks for coming on the channel.
Thank you so much for having me, Leah. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, great. So do you want to let everyone know who you are, a little bit about who you are, your background, and you do have some credentials before even diving into this children's book and writing it, and one fun fact about yourself.
Yes. So my name is Mckenna. I grew up here in Montreal. I started drawing from a young age, inspired by all the different books I love to read, and I just love animals so much, and so I drew animals all the time. So that's how I got started as a kid drawing. I later went to Concordia University and I got a BFA in painting and drawing, and I also did a minor in animation. Yeah, and so I really enjoyed working on different projects there. And thankfully, the Lord blessed me with a job after I graduated at an animation studio called Tonic. And there I was trained to be able to paint backgrounds in Photoshop for different movies and TV shows. A few of them, one of them is Bob's Burgers. That's a movie. And then another show I worked on was Central Park. And I even got to do a little bit of work on a Looney Tunes feature, which was
That's fun.
The Day the Earth Blew Up. And that honestly is so beautiful. I was really excited to be able to do a bit of work on that. So those are some of the things I worked on. I also illustrated a book called God's Servant Ruth by Douglas Bond, and I did that. It was published in 2023. So that was my first experience doing professional illustration for another book. And then, a fun fact about myself. I absolutely love chickens. I love chickens so much. And I hatched 6 of my own this year. And I just found a fresh egg a couple days ago.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, so I'm really happy. I can't wait for more. So yeah, we'll see what comes next.
Wow.
Yeah, so
6 chickens that you hatched. Oh, that's so sweet. I could just picture you, like, just with your little eggs covering them.
Yes.
Aw, that's so sweet. That's exciting. So you've worked on a book before. You said God's Servant Ruth. Was that part of the journey to, like, how did you come up with this book in the first place? You've been an illustrator, you've drawn like most of your life. So then how did that go from, okay, I'm an illustrator, I want to draw, to writing a children's book? So the conception of that to the actual finish line, the product that you have now, which is Otis the Farm Dog. Just detail that a little bit out for us.
Yes. So yeah, I got hired to do illustrations for God's Servant Ruth. And that was a really great learning experience for me. And it was good. The thing about that I really enjoyed, it was nice to have the story already there. And I got to come up with fun ideas of how am I going to depict this scene, or what scene am I going to depict if this text, because the text was super long and I had to choose, okay, what part am I going to illustrate? What's the most exciting? So that was cool to do. And then doing my own having to write it and design it and do all of that, it was because I am an illustrator first, not
Yeah.
necessarily a writer, but I love communicating story through action and through expression. So I started drawing first. I did my drawing
Oh,
design first.
okay.
Um, I don't recommend that.
Oh, really? Why not?
No. Because um, you need to have just kind of like a storyboard. You need to know uh, what specific things you're going to illustrate so that the story has a good flow before you start
Hmm.
doing pictures, because otherwise you're going to be like, oh wait, this scene doesn't work, I need to
Yes.
completely redo it. So basically there's unfortunately, if you start with the illustrations first, there's some backtracking. So anyway,
Okay.
so I did the design for this first book. I did the design, and then I did the writing sort of at the same time. So as I was doing the illustrations, I had like a rough idea of how the story was going to go. Um, and I was also developing workflow at the same time,
Mm,
working in different softwares and figuring out how I was going to handle the text and where in the illustration I was going to put the text as I was forming it.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so there was a lot of interesting new things I had to learn, which was really fun and challenging at the same time. Um,
Hmm.
I started doing the design and the writing kind of at the same time. And then um I had a lot of people help me edit the story as I was
Okay.
doing the drawings at the same time.
Okay.
So
That's a lot to juggle.
yes, so I have a very different workflow established for my second book that I'm working on. So
Oh,
yeah.
I can't wait if it's just as good as this one or better.
Oh, you're sweet. I hope it's
I'm sure it will be.
yes, with the experience. So did that answer your question, or is there some things I missed?
Yes, yes, it did. Just I'm curious about so the conception of the idea. How did you get the idea for Otis the Farm Dog? It's
Oh,
all about Otis, right? So just a little backdrop for people who are gonna watch. Um, it's Otis the farm dog, and basically all the animals go missing, and he needs to round them up, right?
yes.
So how did you come up with that idea? Like, where did the spark of the idea come from?
So the idea came from my real dog, Otis. I do have,
Yeah.
and you'll see when you read the book, there's a picture of him in the back. And the idea basically came from his personality of wanting to have everything in order. And
Oh,
the conflict came up just because that goes against who he is.
yeah.
Animal missing is the exact opposite of what this type of dog desires in life. So, which is order. We call him the enforcer because he enforces all the rules and makes sure the animals are where they are supposed to be in real life.
Yes.
And so that's where the idea came up. Um, and also, I liked the idea of having a lot of different animals go missing because I like drawing lots of different types of animals. So that
Yes.
was just a bonus there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So basically, the idea came from my dog and his personality, and just the fact that I love drawing animals, and this was uh, I think, a good first step as a first book to do something that I'm already pretty familiar with, which is my dog, and
For sure.
I have raised or have experience with. So yeah, so that was my
That's
original idea.
that's really neat. I could tell actually just by reading, now that I'm listening to you talk about it, how you said that you're very like action oriented when it comes to your illustrations, and you
Yeah.
love the different types of animals, and you see that as you're reading it. Like you're like, oh
Aw.
wow, okay, now I understand why it was illustrated this way when you're saying these words. So thanks
Oh,
for kind of
yeah.
giving more context. I can really see that in the illustrations for sure. And even just the action, like there's so much action going on. And one
Mhm.
thing I want to let everyone know is like it's really the perfect gift for any little ones in your life. So they could be your own kids, your grandkids, your nieces and nephews, you don't even need to have kids, but if you have some sort of kid in your life, you need to get them this book. It's just so great. Mckenna and I, we were talking before the show, and I was just saying that it's just so interactive, and it's been a while since my kids have had the passion for a children's book or excited to read one. And I opened this out of the mail. I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to read McKenna's book. And all of my kids were fighting to to be like, no, it's
Oh,
my turn to count the sheep, or it's my turn to find this. And they were just all fighting for it. And I haven't seen that in them for a while. So you brought joy to them through your book while we were
uh,
having this experience at home. And I think that's amazing. Yeah, when you think of that's a great thing about being an author. You bring joy either to reader,
oh,
like with fiction or nonfiction, or to kids through children's books. So thank you
I'm
for that.
thank you. I'm so glad they enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, they did. And well, I guess that kind of segues into my next question. What made you think children's books? I guess you're an illustrator, so it kind of goes hand in hand. But I mean, you could do, I don't know. There's
Yeah,
graphic novels.
yes,
There's I'm trying to think of like any other works that would require illustrations, maybe even like cookbooks
yeah,
too. But yeah,
yeah,
so what was the
like
draw there?
like comics. Yeah, so the
Yeah.
desire for children's books specifically, um, I really like, so the way I like to draw, I really like drawing um, expressive characters, and I like inserting um, subtle humor or very obvious humor in my
Okay.
drawings. And I don't know, it's just the kind of thing I I found kids liked. So when I would draw things for my little cousins or my brother,
Mm-hmm.
I would always try to find a way to make it goofy or funny. And so
Okay.
that kind of as I would interact with them, and I would figure out, okay, what do they like? What do they think is funny? And I guess I just developed a desire for doing more drawings like that. And um, also, I like having um, a comic would be, I wouldn't be able to do as much color or detail because the boxes would be pretty small. And then
That's true.
a graphic novel. Yeah, I don't
Similar
know.
concept, I guess.
Different. Yeah, it's a different concept. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I guess I just want. I like having the idea of a project that I can do, 30 pages, and have a certain level of design and color that I can do for each page, without it taking like years. I think a graphic
Yes.
novel would take so long, but yeah, I guess maybe also it's because of the books I read growing up. I didn't really necessarily read graphic novels, but when I was younger, I definitely read lots of different children's books with illustrations that I.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that also is part of um, the inspiration there. Um, yeah,
So,
more. I would say it's more based on like uh, the kind of drawing that I like to do, and who that would resonate with. I think the type of drawing I like to do resonates more with children, maybe. I think.
yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
I think you're right on because obviously my kids loved it, and I'm sure so many others will too.
Oh, I'm glad.
And you mentioned that you read a lot of children's books when you were younger. So which one was your favorite, or one of your favorites?
Yes. So, um, one of my favorites, I actually have one with me now. This is part of a series,
Ooh,
the Adam Raccoon series. So one of
okay.
the things I love about the Adam Raccoon books is I can show some. So the guy who illustrated these books, he is an animator, and
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Glenn Keane, and he did like classic Disney movies like Lion King, Little Mermaid.
No
And
way.
yes, and so he did these. He's also a Christian, and
Okay.
what I love so much about his books is that the characters are super expressive, which is not surprising.
Oh,
He's an animator, and also they all have a biblical theme, with
okay.
Adam Raccoon representing the children, and then let's see, King Aaron representing God. And so
Okay.
it's a great, fun, interactive story, and it also teaches kids biblical themes. And
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, and there's tons of these, and I just loved them growing up. So
I
yeah,
don't think I've ever heard of that series. Yeah,
yes,
but then
it's
again, I don't remember reading a lot of children's books or being read to children's books
okay.
necessarily. Like I remember having the memory of my mom had gotten this Pilgrim's Progress, but like a kid's condensed version with
Oh,
pictures. And so
fun.
that's kind of like the only thing I remember us reading together or being read to. And
Oh,
then it went straight from that to Narnia and
oh,
Nancy Drew.
great.
Right. So like kids
Yeah.
books I just don't really have a memory of, but that's really neat that yeah, you were impacted by that. And it sounds like a really neat series and I should look into that for my own kids.
Yes. You should. Honestly, it's every time any books I would read to kids I would babysit, they all gravitate towards this, even if they weren't Christian. They would,
Okay.
which I found really interesting too, by the way. That
Yeah. Well, if they're I guess if they're themes that kind of last the ages, right? And
yes,
themes
this is
that are
true. It's not.
resonate with everyone, then anyone can enjoy them. And it looks like they're great designs as well. So
Yeah.
they look
Yeah.
very entertaining.
Yes. So yeah. So that Adam Raccoon series, my favorite as a child growing up. That was one of the
Aw,
best to read for me. Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I'll definitely look it up. And actually, I'll put that on the chat too, just in case. And so you mentioned that you had to that you went how should I say that? That you approached your illustrations in a way that you thought fit kids the best, like the laughing style, the very comical style. So how did you do that with your writing? Like how did that did you find it was like a natural fit or was that a little bit of a different uh, I have someone coughing in the background because I'm in a car if nobody noticed by now. here to here to do a vehicle transaction. Anyways, um, yeah. So yeah, was that natural, or did you have to kind of go about a completely different process for the writing?
So yeah, I did have to think a lot about that, specifically thinking about, okay, um, what age group am I writing for, and
Mm-hmm.
what words will they understand, what words are too big. Um,
Mm,
so I did, that's something I definitely did have to learn. And I also
okay.
condensed things a lot. I said a little bit more in each sentence, but I had to condense it and make it more clear and
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, easy. Also has to be easy to read for children who are learning or who are being read to, so
Yeah.
and uh, associate like proper, like also grammar to everything had to be uh perfectly. I mean, obviously you don't want any mistakes ever when you're writing a book for anybody, but especially for a child who's learning to read. um
Yes.
I had to be very also the font is extremely important.
Oh.
You have to, I didn't really think about this until I did a bit more research, and I found, okay, you have to choose a font that is written how you write it in real life, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Like
Yes.
there's an A, like typical, like
I'm gonna take a look now.
yeah,
Okay.
there's
Yes. Yes. So not like the Times New Roman
yeah,
A, but
not
just
Times
like
New
a
Roman.
regular
Yeah, exactly.
A.
Like an A like that wouldn't work. So for a child who's learning, it
Yeah.
has to be easy to read. It has to be super clear. So yeah, so the fonts there, and I had people who taught young children help me figure out how to
Okay.
write this to make them more clear for
Yeah.
kids. So yeah, so that was a good learning process. Um, and yeah, I learned a lot about that. Um, so yeah, so that definitely I don't know necessarily that I would say it came super naturally, but now I have a much better idea of how to go about it for the next book.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
So
neat. And you mentioned
yeah.
something. You mentioned oh, what is it now that you mentioned? You mentioned a few things. Oh, about what like how did you do your research? Did you just read a lot of children's books kind of in the age range you wanted to right for in terms of like knowing what words to use for kids that are learning to read? Or did you, as you said, talk to a few friends and just kind of run it by them and see like, oh, like how did you research that? How were you able to kind of figure that
Yeah,
out?
yeah, that's a great question. So I looked. So the first thing I did was I looked at a bunch of different books that I read when I was a
Okay.
kid, and looked specifically, okay, how much text is there per page, and pick
Mm-hmm.
the age, and yes, and then I talked to a few friends who are also teachers, and then I also looked at a few interviews online of authors who were writing children's books and for what age groups they were writing for.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I tried to get experience from people who did writing children's books themselves, and then also just read the ones that I have and the ones that I grew up um, reading when I was really young. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so
Well, that's smart because I
yeah,
think, well, I think every book may come with a little bit of research, but yeah, for
yeah,
children's, it just may not come as naturally to some people, and they could write something and then it just doesn't work. And yeah,
yes, yes,
I will give a little example of the font because you mentioned the font, and I'm gonna also
yeah.
share my favorite page of the book if that's
Oh yeah,
okay, or one of them. I mean, like
oh yeah,
seriously, okay, before I show this, every page it's incredible. Like you've done an incredible job. Like every page is striking. The
Aw,
colors, the like even as an adult, I love looking at this book and reading it, and
aw,
like you can tell you're an artist. Like it's just gorgeous, everything.
oh, you're so
So
sweet. Thank
the
you.
detail's amazing. So this is my favorite. Okay, hold on. There. Okay, so
It's
that's the
fun.
font.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so that's I can see how that would be very important. And then yeah,
yeah,
this is one of my favorites and I loved it because you have like local places to where you are on the plaque. So like you have the
yeah.
where is it now? The Ormstown Fair, the
Yes.
Coaticook region or somewhere
Yeah.
where is that one now? Oh yes, that's yeah, this side, this side. Yeah,
Yeah.
there. So yeah, it was
Aw.
just so neat. I was like, oh, places I know where I grew up too,
Yes.
like the area. So
Yes. I was thinking I had to put something there. So I was like, you know what? I'm from Montreal. Why don't I put local fairs rather than make something up? I thought it would be fun to put
yeah,
real stuff. Well,
yeah, that's right.
I'm glad
Yeah,
that you knew some of what those were. I mean, it's not a surprise because you live here in Montreal, but I'm glad
yes.
that you resonated with that. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I can't remember, you said this that you translated this in French, right? Into French? There is a
yes,
French version of this? Okay.
yes. I don't remember if I published it yet, but
Okay.
yeah, there's no reason for me not to. I might as well, especially for Christmas. So
Yeah.
so yeah, I should do that. I'm glad that you
Yeah,
remind.
just double check
Yeah,
to
I'm
see if
glad you
it's
remind.
published.
Yes, I'm gonna
Yeah.
upload the text for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, there you go. You're covering, yeah, like, well, because a lot of Montreal's bilingual, and
yes,
that would be perfect. Yeah, you got a perfect book right there, and because you put local places in it too, then people that will
yeah,
resonate with the people around here, right? So,
yes. Oh, that's true.
yeah, yeah. So you talked about the challenge of writing, like trying to figure out, what would work for kids. So did you have
Mhm.
any other unexpected challenges with this book
Yeah.
that just something you had to learn through?
Yes. So
Okay.
I would say, yeah, the first thing was, um, it's a good idea to have the story completely written out, like all the text exactly how you want to have it before
Mm,
um, you start illustrating it. Because what happens is it's complicated to fix the text after. It's not necessarily complicated, but you have to go into the illustration, um,
and then
change.
move that around.
Yeah, well, it depends the workflow. So for a workflow for an illustrator, uh, there's a lot of different steps because you have to upload it and you have to change the color space if you're not working
Hmm.
in CYMK. You have to change it from RGB to go for print, and so there's a lot of different steps. So
That's right.
when you finally get the illustration done, you've already spent like 5-10 minutes doing that, and then you realize, oh crap, I have to go back and I have to change the page. So so it's a good idea. For the second book, I'm gonna have all the text done, edited, reviewed, finished, so that all I have to do is worry about the illustrations and not have to worry about going back and redoing any text or spelling checks or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that challenge it showed up for me, and I was like, oh, next time I'm gonna have a very well written workflow and all the steps that have to go, so that there's less revision, or it's easier to do revisions, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, and then learning how to do the self-publishing was interesting too. And I actually tried to go through a publisher online, but they ended up
Okay.
being a scam, and so
Oh
deal with that. And I
no.
think I sort of got my money back, but
Oh,
yeah, I
that's
think honestly,
terrible.
self-publishing is the way to go, and
Okay,
watch
can you
out.
share with everyone though, like what
Yeah,
this company was so that way they know not to go with
yeah.
it?
Okay, so this company, I don't know if they're still out there, but they advertise themselves as Amazon publishers. And
Okay.
so the reason that I went with them is because I thought it was part of Amazon, and I thought Amazon was doing this, not some random private company.
That's
Um,
really sneaky.
yes, and a lot of them do that. Is what I found. I did some research after, and I found that a lot of it's not illegal for them to use the name Amazon, but
Okay.
they will. A lot of different companies will, and they, I don't know, they weren't. It wasn't like they were helping me necessarily. It was more like they were just looking for quick steps for me to get something to them so that they could get money out of me. Pretty
Yeah.
much. I don't really like this treatment. They weren't treating me very well. Yeah. So anyway, so watch out for weird private companies. Maybe look for reviews before you go with them, because I made the mistake
Yes.
of thinking they were something they weren't. So yeah, but
That's awful. I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's
it's okay. It was good for me to figure that out, and so that it doesn't happen again.
yes. So you
um,
said you enjoy self-publishing.
yes, yes. After figuring out, it's not that complicated once you know what steps to take.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I'm glad I got to do that, and I just uh, did a little bit of research on what to do, and make sure you get the right templates, especially the
Mm-hmm.
illustration. Oh, that's funny.
Wait,
I
does
forgot
mine
that.
do that too? No, it's just yours.
Well, oh, my
There's
dog.
Otis.
Yeah, that was, I apologize. He's very loud.
That's
Um,
okay. He had to make an appearance
he
at least
did,
once,
and he did.
right? It's about him.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah. So the self-publishing is not too overwhelming. It's good to go through it, and I'm sure you've done it many times. Have you?
Yes. Yeah.
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 So you.
I self-published with Amazon and Ingram
Yes.
Spark, which I will mention to you later. I don't know if you've heard of it, but okay. Well, I'll just say it now because people can learn from it too.
Yeah.
So the way to get your hardcovers on Amazon is to publish hardcover on Ingram Spark. I didn't know this. So you see, I just did it on Ingram Spark because I'm like, okay, they give the option and I really like the jacket, right? So you have the book and then the jacket around the book. I
Yeah.
didn't like, so Amazon has hardcovers, but it's like the Bristol, it's the board, the pulp board. It's just your
Yeah.
front cover on the hard surface and that's it. And I
Okay.
didn't want that. I wanted the jacket around the book. So the Amazon doesn't have that, but Ingram Spark does. So I did it through
Oh,
Ingram Spark, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at my book page on Amazon and it says hardcover. I'm like, what? Like, how do they have the hardcover? And I didn't even put hardcover on Amazon. So I thought, okay, I'm going to buy one hardcover and see what it looks like. And it was the
mhm.
exact same thing as Ingram Spark. So I'm not sure what the connection is there. I'm guessing if you just publish a hardcover on Ingram Spark, you can receive it, or you can get it on Amazon once it's done through
Oh,
IngramSpark.
yes. Okay, great.
So highly recommend it that way. If you want a hardcover, you can do that, and it should pop through
Okay.
on Amazon because I did not like indicate you do the expanded distribution on IngramSpark, so it goes everywhere, but I did not
Okay.
expect that to happen. So that was neat.
Okay, nice. That's great. I'm definitely going to look into that because I wanted to do a hardcover version of mine.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's
And
great.
when you do, I will get the hardcover version because I was telling McKenna earlier,
Yeah.
like, the page is already like it's a well-loved book. This is why you should get it. But
Aw.
if I go this way, no hardcover, I might have to get two or three before my kids are done with this.
Yes, I'll definitely look up how to do that on Ingram Spark. I would love to do that.
Yeah. And IngramSpark I find is pretty straightforward, just like Amazon. You have
Okay.
prompts, you put up your files, and um, they might ask for different types of files when it comes to the
Okay.
cover, but it's still pretty easy to follow. So for anyone who wants that, that's
Okay.
that's how you do that. So
Awesome. That's
yeah,
great.
yes. Oh, vehicle's moving. I better
Okay.
put my seatbelt.
That's a good idea.
Yes. Okay. So all right, back to the interview. And don't worry about the weird changing scenery behind me. My next question is for someone, so you've just been through this, you're very fresh,
Yeah.
right, as a new children's author, for someone who wants to do this. Now, I know personally a few authors or writers, and they want to do children's books. Like, what would you recommend to them? What would be the one thing you would say to them to be like, this is something that helped me, this is the way to do it? I know you said write first, illustrations. Is there any other
Yeah.
kind of information you want to give, or just something that helped you mindset wise, that just helped you get through the process for your first book?
Yes. So, um, the thing that's helping me out so much during doing the second book that I'm working on is having um, having a mock book already done. So
Oh,
like having little versions of drawings and how I'm going to place the text small. So I already know where I'm going, what I'm doing. So it's not like I'm
okay.
doing huge illustration and then kind of trying to put the text. I'm like, oh, actually, I didn't give enough space there. So to already have an idea. So it's kind of almost like a storyboard if you know about animation. But so laying everything out, the illustration is already roughly there and the proportions of where everything's going to go, and then having the text there. Or you might have to decide, okay, no, actually, there's no space in this illustration. I need to have it right next to it. And then
Yeah.
you have to think about, okay, so how many, if I'm doing that, how many blank pages am I going to have in the book? Is that really what I want to do to make it coherent? Um,
Mm,
yeah. So having a mock book of, okay, this is what it's all going to look like. This is how it's going to flow.
yeah.
Because the text and the illustration on the page does have it does have an impact when you're writing, and you have to figure out, okay, what kind of impact do I want that to be? If I'm doing
Mm.
something with a reveal, do I want the kids to read the text and then the reveal would be on the next page, or do I
Oh,
want
that's true.
page? So what I'm doing with my second book is I'm having the anticipation, and then the thing that they're going to find on the next page is
Mm,
they have to wait for it or work for it. So that it's a good idea to know how that's going to work before you start
yeah.
doing anything finalized.
Okay.
Also, know the limitations of the software you're using, because I
Mm,
discovered so there's two different color spaces when you're working. For digital, it's RBG, and then
yep.
for print, it's CYMK or CMYK. I forget exactly
Yeah.
the
CMYK.
yeah, CMYK. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, the software I was using, Clip Studio, only works in RBG, and you have to
Okay.
export and CMYK. And when you do that, the color changes a little bit, unfortunately.
Oh,
So when you're working, you're saying, okay, so this is all the colors that exist on a screen, but they don't
yeah.
always translate for print. And so just know the limitations, because you can work with that.
Yep.
but it's better if you work in the color space that is going to be printing, which is CMYK. So
That's right.
yeah, I would say know the software you're working with and know the limitations. Know ahead of time, okay, what am I going to have to do? Amazon only accepts PDF. Is this software going to
Yes.
work? Export a PDF. What other software do I have to use? So what happened to me is I had to develop sort of this workflow where I had to work in the software I was using, Clip Studio, and then I had to take everything to Photoshop, but I had to
Okay.
merge everything before I put it in Photoshop, because if I put it in Photoshop, that software handles clipping masks differently. So if I had a shadow that was on a folder instead of a layer, suddenly that shadow would be all around the face. It wouldn't be just on what I clipped.
Oh no.
So that's something I discovered. I was like, oh, whoops. Okay, I have to make sure I merge everything before I put it into Photoshop. So
Yeah.
yes, I would say understand the limitations of the software you're working with and know the steps ahead of time you're going to have to take so that you can establish a good workflow for, okay,
Yes.
starting in Clip Studio, then I have to do Photoshop, or if you're doing something like Affinity Designer. Yeah, those are things I wish I learned a bit more about first, but now I know because I did it the hard
There you
way.
go.
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
So
You pushed through it. You had to go through those fumbles, but that
yes.
didn't stop you. You just kept going, and through imperfect actions, you get, I would say, a perfect children's book.
Oh, you're so
I
sweet. Oh
mean,
my gosh. Thank
seriously, I'm gonna sing the praise of your book everywhere I go. I'm like, guys,
you.
did you
Aw.
hear this children's book? You have to get it. I'm gonna ask my library to get it because it's just so good.
Oh
So
my gosh, that's so
yes.
sweet. Oh, I
Yes,
definitely,
I will even like get
yeah.
one for them and
Oh,
just be
you're,
like, you should put this in.
I definitely do the French version then, that's for sure. To bring it to,
Yes, like where you are,
yeah.
it's all French, right? So that would be, and I'm sure they would take your book in a heartbeat and have you guys,
Oh,
have you come in and do a reading to the kids. And
oh,
libraries are pretty good about supporting local authors. Now, this is my experience with Ontario.
ooh,
I don't know Quebec. I mean, I'm assuming, especially if you have it in French, they push French like books and
yeah.
authors quite a bit. So you should
Yeah.
be okay.
Oh,
I
great.
know even with the library, okay, I know guys, we're going very local here, but the library in Point Claire, it's someone works there. She's like, oh yeah, you should bring your books. And I'm like, not even in Point Claire, but I'm like, okay, I'll do that. I just haven't done it yet still.
Oh,
Anyways,
aw,
you got to try, right? You got to try to put yourself in spaces and see what happens. And the worst you can get is a no, and that's it. And then you just move
yeah,
on to the next thing. But yeah, you've got
yeah.
the golden ticket right there. So
Aw, thank you. Yes, I'm gonna try to do that. I think that would be a good next step to do.
yeah, for sure. And well, my last question I have for you is, how did you grow through all this? Like, what did you learn about yourself in this whole process?
That's a great question. Um, I've learned that I would love to continue um,
Good, good.
books.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I really enjoy having. I enjoy having the challenge of coming up with a story and how uh, I'm going to portray that. It's also, I
Hmm.
would say, it's also fun, especially after working in the animation industry. It's also fun to have. Uh, it's easy to have it already done for you, and you're just like, oh, I just have to make this fun drawing. So it's just
Yes.
a different. It's a different experience because you're like the design's already done for you. All you have to do is follow exactly what they want and maybe add a little
Oh, okay.
of your own style to it a little bit, kind of. But
Tweak it.
it's, yes, kind of.
Yeah.
So I enjoy. That's where I started. But another reason I really wanted to do my own book is because then I would have complete control over, okay, how the
Mm,
story is going to go, what is the design. So
exactly.
that was really fun. So doing I enjoyed the independence of being able to do
Hmm.
that. Um, and yeah, and also at the same time, I learned that it's also very hard to come up with something out of nothing at the same time, and to come up
Mm,
with everything out of nothing. The design, and what is the overall style and theme and everything. So, while it's also fun to be independent, it's also like, well, that's also a lot of responsibility. You got to think of a lot of different things.
for
So,
sure.
um, so yeah, it was good for me to be challenged in different areas. I would say not just,
Mm,
um, visual of one specific scene, but having to figure out how everything was going to flow,
yeah.
and um, yeah, yeah. So I learned, but overall through that experience, I learned that I actually really enjoy it, and it's fun to have a project to work on independently and to be able to share and
Hmm.
hopefully entertain and maybe educate or have kids interact with the story that I make. So,
Well, it's definitely interactive. It's definitely educational. I mean, even the whole, okay, so you do have, it kind of reminded me of, what is it now? Animal Farm with the pig
oh
scene. I'm
yeah,
like, that even made me think of Animal Farm by George Orwell. And,
aw.
so you're putting some like classic literature into there.
That's so
Maybe whether you were intentional about it or not, but then, that
funny.
was cool. And
Aw,
yes, it's super interactive. Like almost every page, there's something for the kid to do and to interact with the
aw,
story. So it's a great legacy you're starting to build for yourself. So I can't wait for the
aw,
next
thank
one. Going to be
you.
like the first one to buy it. So you are working on the second one, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And it is called, I'll give us a little spoiler.
Yes.
Otis. It's called Otis and the Imaginary Squirrels. So,
Oh, yes. Okay. Actually, you teased that a little bit in the back in your bio. You mentioned that.
yes. Oh, I did.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, yeah.
See, maybe it was
That's
just subconscious. You're like, oh, this is something cute to, put in the back. And now you're like, okay, I'm
yeah.
gonna write that imaginary squirrel story.
Oh, yes. Now that I think about that, I'm like, oh, yeah, I did give a hint. I remember.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the things we do and not even knowing.
Yeah. Spoiler. Now I'm like, oh, okay, I did do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great. Well, those are all my questions for you. Thank you so much for coming onto the channel. I'm so glad we got to showcase this and a few of the pages and the
Yeah.
fonts. And I mean, like, I'm just doing a quick swipe through because, like, every page is just
Aw,
gorgeous. Like, everything
thank
is
you so
perfect.
much. I
Yeah, I love
have
it.
I have the star of the book with me. Otis.
Yay! Hi,
Otis.
Otis.
You look like him.
And he looks just like himself in the
Yeah.
book.
Aw. Yes.
That's perfect.
You're the reason I
So,
wrote that movie.
is he gonna have, what? I was thinking it'd be funny if somewhere in the house he had a picture of him and the book and you like frame it.
That is a great idea, honestly.
Right?
I think that's
He's
great.
the
I need
star.
my camera out and take a picture of him. Just
There
like,
you go. Do a whole fashion shoot of Otis
yeah,
and his book.
yes, like your
And
favorite
then
paper.
you'll put yourself in there too.
Yes,
Inspiration, author, product, right there in one
right
picture.
there. Yes, one picture on the wall. Otis would feel very proud.
Yes, I'm sure. Just like that the page I showed with all his trophies.
Yes, trophies. He has one real life now, I guess.
There you go. So I'm going to mention again quickly, guys, this is a giveaway. So within like by tomorrow night, I'm going to pick a name in the randomizer and we'll have a winner for that. So
Awesome. Thank you so
yeah.
much, Leah. This was great. This was wonderful. Thank
Oh,
you so much for having me.
oh, you're very welcome. It was a lot of fun. And I'm just I went out of my comfort zone, not comfort zone, but just like my usual too. I've never done a children's author. So
Oh,
this was
yeah.
a lot of fun. Yeah, it's always
Yay.
I think it's all been fiction authors, varying genres, but I haven't done, oh, no, I did do somewhat of a nonfiction with Dr. Phil Oldfield. I had him
Oh,
on,
okay.
Philly Raccoon, which he calls
Yeah.
himself Philly Raccoon. So I had
Yeah.
him. He's kind of
Awesome.
like fiction, nonfiction, memoir, autobiography. He's a whole range of genres. But yeah, this is the first time I'm doing a children's book, so I'm so glad you were my first.
Oh, yay. I am honored. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So we're gonna say bye. Everyone have a great evening, morning, wherever you are. Take
Yeah.
care.
Bye.